Hello everybody, it's MrRean here, and today I'm going to show you how you can create your own Super Mario Galaxy edits. Now this is for Super Mario Galaxy 2 only, so another tutorial might be made for Super Mario Galaxy 1, but these two are definitely similar. Now first of all, you want to get the Super Mario Galaxy 2 files, which they're all listed here. But the only two you really need are stage data and object data. Object data and stage data are both needed in order to load everything. Because stage data is what loads the actual Galaxy files, which stores all the objects and all of the star numbers, scenarios, and everything. Object data stores all of the existing models, all of the animations, but Whitehole only uses them for the purpose of loading the models into the interface so the user can interact with it. Next up, you need a recent version of Whitehole, which is version 1.1.2, I think it is called, by a user on Parem64. But now let's go ahead and load this right up. It may take a while depending on how fast your computer is, but my laptop is indeed a little bit slower than usual, but it works. Alright, so now that you have this loaded up, this is the wrong version ever because nobody ever changed it. But under settings is check for object database data updates on startup, which means when you load this up, it automatically goes to the Parem64 object database that the community creates and then checks for any updates of people changing it. I've never seen this actually work before. I think it works in previous versions. I have not been able to look into the code and try to fix it. But right now you can use this if you want, even if it works or not. Using shaders for 3D rendering, it makes the Galaxy look a whole lot better than it originally would be. And for rendering objects in low res, it simply allows you to drag it so you have a more control drag as you drag an object, so it's not like lagging when you drag it. But these are my recommended settings that I use. About is how which people helped, what it is, where the site is. Now you want to select game. You want to go to select game folder on the top left, and then you want to go to your directory, which mine is underneath Super Mario Galaxy 2 New, which is what is in that folder is stage data and object data. And when you select it, you hit open, and then you have every single galaxy in that folder loaded into the interface. Now take notice how the zones are in there. These are all the galaxies, but when you open up a galaxy, it'll automatically load the zones into another section for you, so you can easily find those. So let's go ahead and open Big Waterfall Galaxies, which is Hi.Today Falls in the actual game. You select it and hit Open Galaxy. Now you have this interface, and you're wondering what all this stuff does. First, you want to wait for the galaxy to pre-render first, to load it all up, and then that's when you want to maximize the screen. Once it loads, maximize. If you're wondering, these are the axes. I can't remember the difference between X and Z, but this is Y. Now you see the background. Once you can select the background with the mouse click. You can select all objects with a mouse click. And once you select them, you hold down the left mouse button and you drag it around. And then some objects are not singular, they have a bunch of objects attached to them. So when you move one part of the object, all the other objects move with it because it's all in one model. Take notice that when you're moving other objects. Now you're wondering what all these buttons are for. This is the Scenario and Zone tab. This shows all the stars and all the zones that are used in the galaxies. Big Waterfall Galaxy is the actual galaxy. Common plus A. Common means it appears in all stars and the A layer with changes in the A layer. So all these are used in every single star with the A layer. But when you move to the second star, you get O. What does O mean? This means this is the second star. It says it right up here. These are the star numbers. But usually 4, 5, and 6 will be green stars when you see the 1, 2, and the 3 behind you. But on 2-star galaxies, the green stars will be 3 and 4. But when you click on these, you switch the layers. But take notice how nothing is happening when I'm selecting the green stars. This is because green stars do not need a layer, and they are global. They can be placed in any star as long as they are in order of what green star they're assigned to. These, however, each power star in these are assigned to a certain layer. Now we're going to edit the first star, and now we're just going to edit Big Waterfall Galaxy. Now you want to go into Objects. This is the main file. Once you open that up, you see all this. The main folder inside of here is called GMP, that all of these are stored in, but this is actually not the real folder name. General objects will be object info, no spaces. This is where all of this is stored. Map parts will be map parts info. Gravity would be, I think it's called planet info. Starting points is start info. Paths is path point info or path info. Now, firstly, let's go ahead and select. Let's select a really known. Let's go ahead and select the. No, that's not good. Let's go ahead and select this launch star right here. Now the owner launch stars launch Mario to another point in the map. But now, another thing pops up down here. What are all of these numbers and what are all of these entries for? Now, this is where the object is stored. Right here. This is the name. This is how it identifies the object to load. Well, if you want to change it, you simply either you type in a new name. I'll type in coin, and it'll show off a coin. Or I can hit this button right here and browse for another object. Let's say I just want to use, let's see. Let's say I want to use a balloon fruit. I click on the balloon fruit, and now it loads the balloon fruit model. But make sure when you're changing another model, look into its object arts. But I'll discuss that later, what they are. Now you want to change it back. And now, X position, Y position, and Z position are pretty much easy to explain. This is the Y position. If you change it, it'll change it on the Y axis. If you change the X axis. If you change the Y axis, it'll change on the Y axis. If you change it on the Z axis, it'll change it on the Z axis. The X rotation, if you edit this, it'll change on its X rotation. If you save it, if you change it on its Y rotation, it will change its Y rotation. If you change its Z rotation, it will change its Z rotation. Now you see, if you want to experiment by rotating objects, that's fine, but some objects actually cannot be rotated. Like earthen pipe, which is a regular pipe that Mario goes into, you cannot turn that object anywhere. Or the Flumen, whatever you call them, and they're in the Bowser Galaxy where they flip over and wait a little bit, shake and flip over. They can't be flipped either. They have to be on straight down on the axis or else they will not move. Let's change all these back. X scale, Y scale, and Z scale, these are pretty much straightforward as well. If you change it, it'll change the scale of the object, make this 5 times bigger. Some objects actually can't be scaled either, like the eruption of star bits in Yoshi Star Galaxy, where you're flying off and the camera goes down to the volcano and explodes. That smoke from the volcano can't be resized. It has to be 1, 1, and 1, or else it will not work. And now we go down to Parem Scale. This is really unknown of what it does, but this value is usually set to 1. Next up are the object arguments. These are pretty much the real settings of an object. But now you're wondering, what are all these values for? It's easy. You simply go to your browser, you go to Karibo64.net/page equals object database. Now, if you just leave it like this and not include the and game equals 2, it will show Super Mario Galaxy 1 objects. We want Galaxy 2 objects, so we want to go ahead and fill this in through here. And now we hit enter. It will 64 object database, which is interactive with anybody who registers on the website. It takes a little bit to load, but once you actually load it, you can see all of these categories here, which are what categorizes all the objects into certain groups. Now we wanted to figure out What are these for a launch star? You simply go into the... Come on, Firefox. You simply go into here. It will crash your browser, friends. It's a really long process because there are over 1,000 objects being loaded. Now you want to go into search, super spin driver, which is a launch star. Now once you load that, you will now get all of these. Make sure you get the right one, which is super spin driver. You click on it, and then it tells you right here what each object arc does. But I'll tell you right now, not all of these are filled in. This is why this is a community effort. If you find any of these, be sure to document them here by hitting add field, and then you want to type in what it is, which object arc it is, what type it is. They're usually integers, by the way. Default choices list. A default would mean what it's supposed to be set to, or what kind of stuff you can list to. If you list values for an object, make sure you hit list. Then a comment pretty much shows what it pretty much does. But make sure you fill this in with correct information. You do not want wrongful information in this database. Now that we see this, travel time, object arc 0. You see, this is filled in as 200. This is 200 milliseconds. I am pretty sure this is what it is. Most units in this game of time use milliseconds, if not everything. So it would take 200 milliseconds to go from here to where it wants to be, or how fast Mario goes. Yeah, it's how fast Mario goes from one end to another. No, it's how fast he goes, not the amount of time, it's how fast. I don't know what is milliseconds per hour, milliseconds per second, or anything. I cannot remember, but this is how that works. Now, object arc 3 is a number of path points. Well, this is not object arc 3 does not need to be used at all, because you could just assign it straight to a path without setting this object arc, and it will be completely fine. Alright, now off to that, we are now off to the event IDs. SW underscore appear. This is pretty much if something is activated, this will appear. So let's say we add in a question mark coin, which is question coin. We double click this, and then we add it. Knowing question coin, it uses something called SW underscore dead, which means when this is collected, this will appear. So we make this a value of 678, and we go here and we hit SW appear as 678. So when this is collected, the same ID of SW dead will go to SW appear, matching it, and then this will appear. That brings us on to our next part. SWA cannot really have an example because this is a generator. SWA is pretty much an activator. You know how the launch star is usually smaller when it's inside of a cage? Well, that's what SWA does. When it's really small, it isn't activated yet. Once something it's there, but it's not activated. So once something activates it, it will grow big and let you spin it and go off. SWB is the exact opposite. It means to deactivate a launch star. I've never seen anything deactivate a launch star, but this could be used for level design or trickery. So if you hit a switch that has a swoop A of 500, and this has a swoop B of 500, once that is hit, this launch star will deactivate. SW Wake is a lot like SW Appear. I don't really know much of the difference, but SW Wake awakens an object, while that makes an object appear. Now you're wondering, that doesn't really make much sense. That's pretty much the same thing. Well, this has been a study for a long time, but SW Wake is more used by generated objects rather than just having an object appear. But make it appear and do something is what SW Wake seems to do. But that's the SWA. What's the real difference? None of us really actually know yet, but there is a difference in between them, and that's why they have them as two separate entries. SW Parem. This is not that known in the community, but it has been rumored around to say that it is sort of an object speed and how fast it goes through an animation. Next up are the actual object settings. The object ID is pretty much a unique ID for an object. This is not really needed for if you're randomly placing objects. 0 is just fine. But for stuff like generators, you actually have to assign it an ID to make it identifiable. Meshes ID, which means if you come up to an object, it will ask you to talk to it like a toad or Guillermo or a penguin. Go up to them and they'll talk to you through message. But when you're assigning the XML tag to talk to an NPC, this is the value would put in for the text. Which, like, let's say I made Kinopio 001, and then I assign text to it. The value in here would be 1 on a toad, and it will read it, it will identify it, and it will load the text. Next up is a generator ID. This is usually used in exterminations, as known as romps. A generator ID is a generator that generates another object when the generator is activated. So let's say a romp, like how a power star is activated. Extermination power star does that exact thing. Once you kill all of the enemies around, it'll activate. Simply, the generator ID is given a number. Oh, let me find a galaxy to give an example. I think it's in, let's see, Memory Road. It's in Star 2, and it's a romp. This is a dark road. Some of these galaxies are difficult to maneuver through. There are a lot of Octodumas here. Now you see that there's a power star extermination switch. It has an object ID of 95, but yet these Octodumas have a generator ID of 95. So pretty much this means this is tied to the extermination switch. So once, like, if there was just this in the level, if you killed this, the power star would appear. You can assign it to multiple enemies, because all of these enemies have generator IDs of 95, if you can't tell. And then once they are all killed, the power star appears, and then you have another star. I'm going to close this off. Next up is View Group ID. This ID is completely useless. None of us use it at all. It's never used in our custom galaxies, but it's better off viewing some objects in a certain zone better, and how it like shows relations with other objects. But this isn't really used. It's used with a view group control area, and in the area, it pretty much assigns a view group ID to every single object, and then it just compares it to others to see which ones are bonded with the area. It's not really that used with us, but it's good for organization issues. Path ID. This is the path that the launch star takes. See this line that appears whenever I select the object, and when I deselect it, it's gone? This is because this is the path that the launch star uses. So the reason why this isn't down by the launch star is because when the launch star launches, it'll go straight up to this front, and then go all the way back down to this star. But why does it look different in game? This is what us developers are wondering. We don't know how this really works, but we know that it does follow this path down to there. Next up is Clipping Group ID. No idea what this means at all. We're suggesting it has to do with clipping through other objects, possibly, but we have never really experimented with this. This is for like stuff like moving objects. I've seen this in moving objects, but I haven't really gotten time to study it. Group ID, I really haven't seen this either. I guess it's for grouping objects to a switch or something in the sorts. Demo Group ID. This one is fun. Demo Group is an animation that is played when something is activated. I made Whitehole version 1.1.4, which is right now in its alpha stage, just to look at Demo Group ID and how it works. Right now, once you actually assign it an animation and you trigger it, it will play the animation through BCSV entries, which loads the animations of the cutscene, and then it's interactive. So technically, it's really just a cutscene. Next up, we have the miscellaneous settings. Camera set ID is the camera assigned to the launch star. So once you hit the launch star, a camera will angle where you set it at, and it'll follow Mario until he gets up to the next planet. This is the ID it uses. This is tied to, no, this is not this object itself, but this is tied to a camera in the camera section, which is not supported in Whitehole at all. But you can edit it with another editor that I'll talk about later on in another video. Cast ID, never seen it used. It's probably for cutscenes or casting other objects I am unsure, but this is probably used somewhere in the game and we will eventually find it and figure it out. Shape model no. This is abbreviation for shape model number. It's which model it will load from object data. The only thing that really uses this are fish groups and plants. Plants have a special thing inside of them. In object data, you want to go down to the peas. Let I pass them. See these plants, how it says plant A, plant B, plant C, plant D? Well, in my studies, I have shown that if you assign it this number, 0, it will load this model. If you give it an area sheet number of 1, it will load this model, 2, and so on. When you get to B, you assign the shape model number 0, it will load this. 3, it will load this one. But whereas 1 and 2, it's probably unused. C, assign it as 0, it will load that, 1 like that, D like that, and you see what I mean from there. Map parts ID, this links an object to a map part that is moving. The only time I've ever really seen this is rail move water object, which connects with a water area, which is not supported in this version, but is supported in my custom version that will be released very soon. I will be able to explain areas in that video. Object ID, I have really only seen this with simple demo executor, something that executes a small little camera scene, like a pipe coming up or a launch star appearing, and that's pretty much how that works. Now let's say we just want to delete some objects because we don't want them there. Like, this star piece group sucks. This is a circle of star bits or a line of star bits if it's assigned to a path. Now, let's just delete it. It's gone. But wasn't that a hassle just hitting that and hitting the delete button? Well, you can hit the delete button right here and just click on an object and it'll disappear. But something else special you can do is hit delete, hold shift, delete, delete, delete. It deletes multiple objects at once, but once you release shift, you have to hit another object, delete another object before it aborts, and then goes back to regular clicking on objects and selecting them. Adding objects works the same way. Once you hit add an object, you have a general object, you have a map part, you have gravity, starting point, and these two are not supported yet. A general object is just a regular object in a level, like a coin, launch star, star piece, enemy, and then you want to look through these. These two are just for my projects that I work with. So I made this custom XML to load all these, but that's not really part of this video. Now let's say I want to add let's see, no, I don't want to add that. We want to add a coin, no, a crystal cage. We just add that in, and then boom, you have a crystal cage in our level. But let's say we want to add multiple of them all at once. We want to type this in, search for it. Now we hit shift, click, click, let go of shift, and click one more time, and then we're back to selection mode. But now, there are actually two ways to search for an object. First one could be either to type in its regular name, which is crystal cage, and it shows up like this. Or you have the option of typing in the item name, which is crystal cage S, and then you will get the same exact object. That's its internal name, and this is the object database name that we gave it to have it better identification. Now let's go ahead and delete all these objects. Next up is a map part. A map part is a moving object. But right now you can add any real object as a map part, but you actually really want to look through the object database to find. You want to find the object that you want. Because, for example, let's just say, you know the rotating platforms and twisty trials that spin around? Well, they're map parts. They spin around and they move. So you want to type in rotating, and then once you type in rotating, you actually get a lot of stuff that can be used for map parts. But you just want to find what you want, which is, I don't think it's in here. Yeah, Twisty Trials log 1 and 2. These two are the spinning logs in Twisty Trials that you have to jump over that are from Super Mario Sunshine. See this? This is the platform. If you added this as a general object, this object will not spin because it has joints in it that allow it to spin in animations. But now instead of adding to general objects, it adds to map parts. Once you go into map parts, you will see some stuff is different from the general objects. Object arcs 4 through 7 are gone. Parem, everything here is still here. I'm sorry. And now you have move condition and all this stuff. If you want a full documentation on this, it will be on Karibo64 and you want to search it up. I think the user was Super Mario Math that actually showed all of these and show how they work. Gravity is another discussion that will be talked about very soon in another video. Starting points is pretty much where Mario starts. It's quite explanatory. So now you want to go over. Here's Mario in his shining glory. There's two of them over him because one for each zone. But here he is. He has settings just like any other thing except for Object Arc 1. Mario ID, this does absolutely nothing. There's nothing really much to it. It just allows you to see which Mario it loads. So like, let's say this is Mario 55. Well, what's its use? You know those checkpoint flags, right? Restart object, which is the checkpoint flag. Since this is 55, this has to identify it somehow. But it does it with object argument 0. This assigns to 55, which so now, not that Mario. This Mario is now tied to this flag. So now it's easy to identify. So when Mario dies, when he has reached that starting point, when he hits this checkpoint flag, he will spawn what is connected to it, since these two are both 55. Next up, paths. These are probably one of the most complicated things to look at, except for cameras and gravity. Paths are things that objects follow, if you don't know that by now. An object is assigned to a path to move back and forth, or just one place and stop, or to keep on looping, which is used by this. This is the zone the path is in. This is the ID, which identifies it from an object. This means whether it goes around in a circle, or it just goes from one point to another, and back to this, and keeps on going, rather than spin around in an entire circle. Usage is always general, except for if Mario is like flying in from Starship Mario. I think that one uses a camera, but that's about it. Name is just a reference. You can pretty much name it everything, like Blarg. You can name it that. You can name it anything you want. It will not affect anything. I use this a lot with my galaxies to identify like which path it is and which one it uses. When I'm adding new points in another program. Path arguments are documented on the Karibo64 archive. Not the archive, the current website. But right now I think Object Arc 0 is the speed of the path point going from one to another. So if these two, this is the speed. But if you do not want the entire thing to be speedy, you can just assign it to this point right here. So this point goes 5 miles per hour. Well, this one goes 95 miles per hour. As it cycles, it'll go 5, 95, 5, 95, 5, 95. So it'll cycle. These are how paths are curved. Okay, let me choose a non-curved path. See how these coordinates are all the same? This means that this is a stable point going to a stable point. But now you want to go into this point right here. No, let's choose this one. Then once you notice that when you edit a value that doesn't affect all three. Oh wait, that's a bad example. Edit these 2 points, and this will move out to 460. But no, it moves out half of the diameter of where the actual point is. So it curves the path. While the first point is at 4,000, this is at 4,600. But this is actually 300 away from this, since it's curved. It stops in the middle of the diameter of the line going out to the box. This curves the path and causes it to pretty much curve, and the paraguma will go whoosh down to the bottom, but then it'll loop right back up and keep on going. These are pretty much speed again, bringing that back up. And if you hit close on this one, it doesn't do anything because it's just 2 points going on here rather than 2 points coming out over here, causing it to be a circle. Well guys, that's it for the first episode. I hope you guys learned something. If you have a question, feel free to register on the Karibo64 website and create a thread about it. We would be glad to show you how some more stuff works, or leave a comment in the down below, and be sure to look at my other videos when I do have them ready. And I hope you like and subscribe, and don't forget to save often as you use this. You hit the save button, there you go. It doesn't really do much, but there is an option when you're about to close it. It will tell you, do you want to save your changes? Either say yes or no. But that's all for this time, guys. Alright, I'll see you next time.